tactics are not to gain support from the general public. Our tactics are to put pressure on the government to take action. And that is what we are doing.
You're not putting pressure on the government because the government listens to what the people of this country want because they're interested in their votes. Well, you've been at this for a while then, and they're not bending to this pressure. So why do you think that more of the same is going to work?
Well, I don't know what is going to work. I don't think anybody knows what is going to work. And so that's why we need to try and use every tactic that is available.
So I hope you don't mind a little bit of a joke on the way into the video, but, well, there'll be more. But also, this is a video for me to try and muddle through the issue of protests today. The changes that the government have attempted to make on protests, the importance of protests, and the importance of protesting correctly. On a brief side note, I do have a Patreon account. You can obviously see why I might want a little bit spare money. The microphone, although excellent, is borrowed and it needs to go back. And I am hoping for some free income to spend on the channel. Any income that I get from Patreon or just donations will go straight into buying me equipment. I have a full-time job and I don't intend to leave it anytime soon. Anyway, back to more important matters. Now, it's fair to say that I think we must be able to protest. All civilizations or populations should be able to protest against the government if they think they are acting unwisely or unfairly. That being said, the right to protest must be regulated and not abused. By regulation, I don't mean it specifically has to be the government or law enforcement that does the regulation, more ideally the protesters themselves. Now, I think I should mention at this point that I have a great deal of sympathy for the environment and the goals of Just Stop Oil, and it might seem that I'm picking on them a little bit in this video because I am, but it's not because I don't believe there are environmental issues. I just think they do it all wrong. So obviously I didn't choose them because of that cause or the fact they're a bunch of spanners, although they are. But I chose them because of the visibility and press they are garnering at the minute. But I will try and spread the blame, so to speak. I will attempt to look at other movements, as well as trying to look at what some movements are getting right. Which, quite frankly, doesn't include this idiot.
I'm about to disrupt a football match, and I'm terrified. Just stop oil. It's a no-brainer first step to stop the harm.
Okay, disclaimer, yes, I've watched that several times, I've edited it, I've stuck it in there, and I still can't not laugh when I watch fucking idiot. Okay, I'll behave. I do apologise. Well, anyway, suffice to say, I don't think that fella got very far in his cause. In fact, I think everyone in that football stadium went out and set fire to cars afterwards. Well, then I hear you cry. If I lack a handy football match and a cable tie big enough to go around my neck. What would I do if I suddenly wanted to protest the use of oil? Well, I'm glad you asked, because me and a couple of friends had a debate about this just the other night, and we came up with a few little pointers. On a brief side note, this isn't some silver bullet or holy grail or anything for protesting or the right to protest. This is just something I came up with a couple of mates. I'm not Gandhi. Now, this is the easiest one because everybody should know what they want, but they should be able to articulate it succinctly and also why they want it, because if you sort of got a goal but you don't know why you want it, it's possible you're just using it as an excuse to kick off. I would be very interested to know if you sat down with this guy who has a fetish for goalposts, if he could articulate why he follows the Just Stop Oil movement in anything that isn't some slogan that he's heard. I highly doubt it. So we'll take Republic as an example. They're an anti-monarchy group. They don't want a monarchy. So that's easy. They've got their end goal sorted out. A clear, attainable path. Let's say, for instance, rather than just having the king step down, abdicate, or, I don't know, get beheaded.
How dare you?
That's popular. Why don't we say Charles is the last king? When Charles dies, we don't have another king. I personally don't want it, but a few people might find it a bit more palatable than get rid of our Chuck, the bastard. God save the king. So it's not so much a clear attainable path for the protests themselves, but a clear attainable path that looks doable to the public at large and to the people you want to actually walk down the path. Which is to say, if we want to get rid of the monarchy, then, and I don't, by the way, we would show the public that it's doable, but reasonable, that it's better not to have a monarchy than to have a monarchy, and how they would go about it. So rather than something completely unreasonable, like just kicking everybody out of Buckingham Palace, burning it to the ground or whatever, I mean, obviously we'd probably just keep it as a tourist attraction. You would suggest a step-by-step dissolution of the monarchy, we'll say. We might have even seen the beginnings of that. It's very possible that a republic might not want the complete abolition of the monarchy if Britain goes far enough down that path to the point where there is only one guy, a king or a queen, his very immediate family, him, the missus, two bairns, none of this cousin and uncle shit, and they have a very small allowance. You never know, but it's far more palatable to the public and the government. And let's face it, it's the government who will be getting shot at the king. It's far more palatable than king, no king. At least to me, anyway. Now, it's an unfortunate truism that unless you make a twat of yourself, nobody's going to pay any attention to you. As they say in England, it is the creaky hinge that gets the oil. Now, for targeted protests, I think in the very brief research I did into this video, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had the best idea. if there was a state that, shall we say, could have been kinder to black people, he would list all of the products in that state that black people shouldn't buy, which would greatly affect the profits of that state, the taxes, whatever. He also, either him or somebody who worked with him, came up with the idea of highlighting one specific law in America. In certain states, blacks weren't allowed to ride anywhere but the back seat of the bus. So there was a gang of people called the Freedom Riders, and they would just go onto buses and they would sit anywhere they pleased. And this sparked holy hell. And this also had the caveat of making the local government, or who are on the buses, and the police forces, in many instances, I believe, look like the bastards, and not in fact the people on the bus. But back onto the first part, I noticed Dr. King, who was saying in his speech in Washington, he had a list of states and he had a list of brands that he was urging all of his supporters not to buy. It was quite clever.
Our agenda calls for withdrawing economic support from you. Asking you tonight to go out and tell your neighbors not to buy Coca-Cola in Memphis. Go by and tell them not to buy Seal Test milk. Tell them not to buy, what is the other bread? Wonder Bread. And what is the other bread, come to Jesse? Tell them not to buy Hart's bread.
So, very clear targets that were at the heart of the problem. I believe those companies were targeted because of the hiring and firing policies towards black people. And I can guarantee you right now that if you're going around jumping up and down on pool tables, if you're running across the rugger pitch, if you're flinging orange powder over flowers, I can guarantee you right now that the government that you want to pass all these bills is laughing its tits off at you. Now this is again a bit of a no-brainer. If you piss people off and it doesn't benefit the government, it's not going to get done. You don't have to look too deeply into military strategies throughout the ages. Afghanistan, Iraq, Peninsular War, the Napoleonic Wars, all of them that had strict rules about what you did with the population. The British Army did, at least, which is why Wellington got a lot less bother from the French when he went into France than Napoleon did when he went into Spain, because Napoleon wouldn't pay for any of the provisions taken from anybody in Spain, and so everybody hated the French, and the French couldn't get shifted in Spain. In a nutshell, Wellington, when he moved from Portugal into Spain, had a standing order that all troops must pay for all supplies taken from the local population, even in France. So even as the British Army moved into France from Spain, they met with a lot less resistance than the French did when they moved through Spain.
Afternoon, there have been some extraordinary scenes at Twickenham today as the Rugby Premiership final has been invaded, or the pitch rather has been invaded, by protesters for, yes, just stop oil. Yesterday they were at the Chelsea Flower Show chucking orange powder over plants, which seems strange for a green movement. Today they were invading the pitch. They stopped play and they were throwing around some of this orange powder or paint or something. And yeah, so probably the biggest day of some of these players' careers, and obviously a big day out for all the people who were there. And again, Just Stop Oil have been trying to ruin it. So to explain why, we're going to speak now to Kush Naker, who is a spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Hi, Kush.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Okay. Kush, don't you realise you're just losing support by the bucket load with these silly, ill-advised protests?
So our tactics are not to gain support from the general public. Our tactics are to put pressure on the government to take action. And that is what we are doing. And that is what we will continue to do until they say that they are not going to issue any new oil and gas licenses.
But you're not putting pressure on the government, because the government listens to what the people of this country want, because they're interested in their votes.
Yes,
if you're alienating and turning off the people of this country, you're alienating and turning off the government.
So we don't need people to support our tactics. We need people to support our demand, which is for no.
I mean, I couldn't have put it better myself. But just in case I haven't got my point across.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Now let's compare Greta with this bloke.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.
If one good thing ever came out of me making this video, it was that it caused me to listen to that entire speech. Now, I don't mean to pick on Greta. She's got a good cause, and she doesn't kick off as many people do. But she came into her speech very confrontationally. And it has to be said, Martin Luther King, I did cherry pick the part of the speech I wanted everybody to listen to. So yes, there was some bits where he was perhaps less than kind to other people, but what do you expect? But he concentrated on the good bits, the best in people, we'll say, positivity. Greta, who I don't know if she wrote the speech on herself or not. Maybe she did. If she did, she's not a bad speechwriter per se. You know, she had poise. She's good at writing stuff down if it was her. There we go. But she concentrated on confrontation, which means that her speech is now memed to death. Whereas, from what I understand, Martin Luther King's isn't memed so much, and it's still considered one of the best speeches of the last century. These are the people that you want to back your demands. Now, the minute it looks like the government is saving them from you by fighting you. That's the minute they're not going to agree to a single thing you have to say. Everybody who wants to protest something, who has some cause, should really remember that. Anyway, that's about it. I'm not sure what else I can say to that. It was just a little bit of a bugbear to me when I see all this stuff happening on television, and important issues like the environment, like equality, all getting trodden into the mud by idiots. You can't, no matter how noble your cause, if your cause is noble and sensible and right, you have to be fighting it the best way possible. You have to be fighting for it the best way possible. And a lot of people just aren't. So thanks for watching. It's taken me quite a while to do this video. You might have noticed by the changes in t-shirts and the detritus on the cabinet top that it's taken me not days but weeks to put this together. I have to do it between work. I'm desperately trying to do these once a week now. Bet whichever way you want on that one. It is Friday. This will be up by this evening. Have a good weekend. And don't leave the car engine running.